watched Nintendo, man, my thumbs were always sore. We stayed up past midnight, beating every score. Now I'm almost 21, playing evermore.
All right, welcome, my friends. Welcome, Beavemanites and Docutrons, to Beaveman and the Doc. I am the Beaveman.
Still the Doc.
He's still the Doc. The only difference is, well, time has gone by. Maybe we're a little fatter. Maybe we're a little thinner. Who knows?
We are currently broadcasting nationwide.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. So I'm in the West, and you're in the Midwest. So I am in Arizona, about, I would say maybe 30, 40 miles from the border of New Mexico. And the Doc is in Michigan. Now, let's see. We were having some good times. What was it? Last week. Last week we had the polar vortex.
Yeah, they call it that, but it was really just cold weather.
It was really just fucking cold weather. How low did it get down to like a negative 40 or some shit?
They come up with the fancy name to polar vortex because they're trying to scare everybody into believing that climate change is real.
Climate change is real.
I think it is, but
of course it is.
I think they're going out of their way to convince people in the wrong way.
Well, it is the natural progression of, I guess you would say, weather. It is the natural progression of things. We have cold fronts, warm fronts, et cetera, But yeah, I think maybe, I don't know that they call it the polar, maybe that is the idea. Maybe they call it the polar vortex to scare people, but I think it just kind of sounds cool.
I'm not a fan.
I think maybe it's a way of making the weather seem pretty freaking comic book like, giving it some action and adventure.
Right. They're trying. It's scare tactics.
No, man, let's spice it up really a little bit. Let's spice it up a little bit, man. Come on.
It doesn't need spice.
So you're just gonna announce it as, guys, I guess there's a cold.
It is what it is.
There's a cold front coming through,
if it's
and nobody
20
gets
below
excited.
zero with a 20-degree wind chill, then it feels like 40 below.
Okay, well, I just think the polar vortex sounds cooler. If you want to be the old man who's just like, just call it cold weather, goddammit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just fucking cold, okay?
It's like they say, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Well, it's just fucking cold weather.
Who says that? That's a saying? It's a cigar is a cigar.
Sometimes cold weather is simply cold weather. It's just calling it something else makes it. I just don't agree with the whole sensationalization of something that is really simple.
Do you know that the Doc I knew as a young man, as a teenager, was a far less an old man?
Well, I've always been one to go out and play in the snow.
Now, let me ask you this question, old man Doc. Do you wear your pants above your belly button yet? No, they're not. So we're not there yet for you. So you're not quite super old man Doc yet. Or are you one of those people like my dad who's like, I still wear the same size jeans that were in high school?
No, I wish.
I'm like,
I got another 8 inches on my waistline between then and now.
Well, I think it's just because my father has no ass and he doesn't pull his pants up, near his belly. So it just sits. I imagine you would have a small waist if you don't cover your belly whatsoever. But well, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, you're still old man Doc. If kids walk on your lawn, do you yell at them? Get off my fucking lawn!
Only if they've got a dog that's pooping on it along the way.
Well, I don't like people on my lawn either, but that doesn't make me old man. That just makes me, I guess I would say redneck, more like country boy. Anyway, so yeah, polar vortex. You know what really sucks though? So as I was leaving to go to Arizona, as we were driving, it was actually a little bit warmer that morning. It was about 12 degrees on the car. I guess you would call it we call it the thermometer. So that it was 12 degrees out. So it was significantly warmer than it had been. And so I flew out. I left from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and flew into Phoenix, Arizona. Guess what the temperature was when I hit Phoenix?
What? Mid-30s?
It was 74 degrees in Phoenix.
Oh, well, good.
So I get to Phoenix. I'm all happy, and get the rental car. I'm driving. Rental car was too hot, so I actually had the windows open. And so there's that huge difference where I flew from Michigan, where it was pretty freaking cold, but warmer than it had been. And I get to Phoenix, it's 74 degrees. Driving through the mountains, I'm heading up north, and I'm watching the temperature gauge on the car drop steadily as I head up north. Let me tell you, I was not fucking happy. Hit Flagstaff, Arizona. It was 40 degrees.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the time of day, because even the desert can be like 120 degrees in the daytime and near freezing at night. I mean,
yeah. That's a normal temperature drop. But when you're talking about where you're driving kind of low where Phoenix is, and you start heading north towards Flagstaff, where the elevation changes, we're talking a 20-degree difference, and I was not a happy camper. I was very.
Well, the humidity in the air can make a big difference too.
It was pretty cold. It was pretty cold and rainy. And then I headed from Flagstaff, and I took off from Flagstaff and headed kind of in a southeasterly direction to get where I am now. And it has been colder here where I am now than it has been in Michigan for the past few days, and it's been snowing. But today it's actually kind of warm. It's supposed to get up to 50. So you can imagine how when I was super excited to be going to Arizona because I was going to get out of the cold weather, and then I get here and it's warmer there for you guys. I was a little pissed. But what can you do?
Understandably.
But what can you do? Anyway, so now you are back in school, and now you're twitting out again.
Oh yeah, I'm going crazy. My teacher, she's brilliant, but her methods of communication and her beliefs and how to teach, they don't rest well with me. So her style I'm struggling with.
Has she tried to have you snatch a pebble from the palm of her hand?
No, that's I think somewhere near the final.
Oh, okay. So that would be at least more fun than what you're doing now.
Yeah, but I by the time the final comes around, I'll probably have it figured out. It just takes some time for me to get used to, and I got to get over my panic.
Now, what other classes are you taking? So we're just talking about specifically physiology right now. Is that right?
Yeah, it's psychology class. It's psychology, whatever.
Right, and that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, it's psychology. I can kind of deal with the ebbs and flows of psychology, and I deal with that quite a bit easier than, like you said, with sociology. And so I find psychology pretty interesting, but it is a different way of thinking, a different way of teaching and understanding. If you really want to wrap your mind around something that's pretty crazy, if you take philosophy or ethics, that'll really warp your mind in a kind of challenging way.
That wouldn't work for me, because my ideas of philosophy and ethics are probably different than most of them, and most of them their ideas are more politically oriented.
Well, it shouldn't be, because philosophy has been a study much older than many of the other studies that are out there.
Yeah, I know.
And when I took philosophy and ethics, what was it? Over 20 years ago, probably 22, 23 years ago, it was still, the book was from like 1930, and it was still all based off of the old philosophers. So
I don't like classes where you can, where the teacher's opinion matters.
Well,
I like classes where the answers are concrete, and it doesn't matter if the teacher likes you. It doesn't matter if you kiss ass. Your answer is your answer, and it's either right or wrong. End of story.
Well, and physiology should kind of be like that. That's how it should be. But
it is.
I think
but the wording, I think my teacher, she believes that it shouldn't matter how it's worded, because it all means the same thing in the end, and she's right. But when the way she words certain things, when I go to look it up in the book and it's worded different, so I have to do some comparison and translation, and it slows things down quite a bit.
Well, that's
Where
because
if she used the same wording and definitions that the book defines, instead of going out on the internet for it, then I would be able to find those answers a lot quicker, and rest assured that when the time came that I need to know the answer, it would come to mind quicker and I could react faster.
Well, she's there. I would, not that I'm that person, but obviously what they're trying to do is making sure you understand a concept. And so it doesn't matter how they word it. You should know what it is.
Well, in the big picture, I feel like I've got it nailed down pretty good, but it's the details in the definitions of certain terms that I'm struggling with.
Well, you'll get there. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I wouldn't sweat it too much. But yeah, I found physiology to be a super fun class. I mean, that's the foundation of what it is that you're doing. You have to know, how the body.
Last week, with all the snow days we had before, I think that is playing a pretty big role in why I'm feeling the panic that I am, because suddenly we miss a whole week's worth of classes, and suddenly we got to try and find a way to make all that up. So the workload in all my classes goes way up. Trying to juggle everything, and not pleasant.
Yeah, you'll get there. It's only that short period of time, but it couldn't have happened at a worse time though, because that's not like a blow off class, and that is, like I said, that is the foundation for what it is that you're doing. You have to know how the body is supposed to function in order to understand when all the variances, the nuances of when it's not functioning properly. So that's the foundation for pathophysiology, which, as a nursing student, you're not going to take that class. But you still need to understand it, because when you're looking at the differentials for the different disease processes that someone is diagnosed with, and you're trying to determine what the nursing diagnoses are for those and how you can care for a patient, obviously, yes, you still need to know how everything's working in the correct way. But yeah, you'll get there.
It's also important to be able to identify symptoms so you know what to put in your charts. So
yeah, like I said, it's your foundation, but yeah, you couldn't have hit a worse time to have the polar vortex come through and screw with your workflow. But anyway,
they call it cold, and nobody closes school. They call it a polar vortex, and everybody loses their mind and shuts everything down.
Well, I think you have to. In that, it was so cold last week. How cold was it? It was so cold. The reason why you got to shut that stuff down is not so much that people can't get from where they're going. You have to think of the people that aren't driving from where they're going, or people who are not as fortunate as others. There was such a huge, which is crazy, in my opinion, in the first place. Why the fuck does Michigan have such a huge homeless population? When I was a trauma nurse, an emergency and trauma nurse working in the local ER, of course, when it got cold, we would have more folks come in for complaints that weren't necessarily complaints. They were just trying to get in to where it was warm. And so I would talk to homeless folks and talk with them. So I'm like, why would you be homeless in Michigan? That just seems insane to me. If I was going to be homeless...
You'd be homeless anywhere. You know where I want to be homeless if I'm going to be? Hawaii.
Exactly.
Go live on the beach, man.
Exactly. Why would you be homeless here? I can't think of... What's a worse state to be homeless in? Maybe Alaska or Wisconsin? New Hampshire? I mean, why would you be homeless here? I would be homeless somewhere else. And it's not like we have so much better facilities or resources for them. People are like, well, they could... Ignorant people say fucking things like, oh, well, they could go to the mission. Well, no, they fucking can't, you dipshit. They kick them out during the day. And there's only so many people that they let in. So, people are fucking retarded. But, yeah, I don't know. I had those conversations with my homeless folks, and they're like, oh, it's not so bad here. I'm like, what the fuck? Are you nuts? I don't like to walk to my car. I hated it when I didn't have a automatic car starter on my car. But anyway, so that's that.
I'm a firm believer that the weather is not a big deal if you dress for it. And if you can't dress for it, well, then you've got some wrong priorities.
Exactly. If you were homeless now, would you stay here? I don't care how warm you dress. It doesn't matter. there is a point in time, obviously, that your body can adapt to harsh weather extremes, and it does take time. I mean, look at the Dahmer party. By the time they made it to safety, most of them were damn near naked, living in harsh weather conditions. So your body can adapt to it, but do you want to do that? Is that something you want to do? I'm not
If
really.
all those people can march all the way from Honduras to the southern border of the United States, by God, I can march from here to someplace warmer.
Oh, fuck yeah.
If I'm going to be homeless.
Absolutely. You start when it's warm. You're like, I'm out of here. See you guys. I'm not coming back. Fuck this place. That's what I would do. But I'm not homeless, thankfully. But, in America, I have this belief that most of us are really only a couple paychecks away from being homeless, unfortunately, because we spend so much. People have mortgages, all these other crap. We just live beyond our means. That's why a lot of times I'm like, you know what? I would just can't wait to get rid of my mortgage. I'd be okay with just living in an apartment personally, but whatever. Anyway, I digress.
I paid my house off once.
That's awesome. Once.
Yeah.
So does that mean that your current house is paid off or not?
It was.
Your current house was paid off?
Yeah, took another mortgage out on it to pay off a couple other things. We don't owe much, but for the most part, my house payment is super cheap.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't have paid off mine for several years. That's why when we look about doing other things, I'm like, I'd much rather sell our house, take a profit on our house, bank that money, and go live in an apartment personally or a condo. Because
yes and no. I don't like the rules. I don't like the rules that they lay out. And like the last apartment that I lived in, when we had a dog, right? And we paid this extra fee so we could have the dog, and it was supposed to be all good. Well, we cleaned up after the dog because dogs have accidents, but we cleaned up really well. So there were no stains on the carpet, no nothing. Well, we move out, and they inspect the place. Everything looked fine. Handed them the key. About a week later, I got a thing in the mail saying we're keeping your deposit and you owe us a whole bunch of money because the carpet is destroyed. Wasn't destroyed when we gave you the key, but they said, "Oh well, we pulled the carpet back and on the underside there were stains." Well, they didn't pull it back and show it to me at the time. They didn't show it to me when we moved in. The carpet, as far as they presented it, was in the exact same condition as the day we moved in. So, I mean, it's that kind of bullshit that companies will pull on you, especially Blue Ridge. You can edit that out later, but...
I'm not editing shit out. They're not really going to listen, and if they did, who cares? What the fuck are they going to do about it? Not a goddamn thing. So fuck them.
Well, then consider it a bad review.
Yeah, fuck them. I mean, who cares? Honestly, who gives a shit? But and that's that's one of those things that you would just have to deal with. On the other side, you can kind of look at the flip of that and say, yeah, well, but maybe I lost a little bit of money, or maybe they kept my deposit. I definitely wouldn't have paid them more money because once the key's over, so that's it. The contract's over. I don't give a fuck what you say. You're not getting any more money. You might be able to keep my deposit, but you're not getting any more. You took possession. That's all there is to it. But the flip side of that is I could say, well, okay, keep my deposit. I don't care. I still don't have a mortgage. Because the downside is... That's
kind of what I did. I compromised, let them keep the deposit, and then I walked away. And, if they want to take me to small claims court, I bet you I would have won. And that's why they just accepted that and moved on.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to troll a little bit and say, well, maybe I can get more money out of this person. Maybe he's one of those people that's just going to say, okay, well, here's this money that you say I owe you to avoid the problems. Because there's so many people out there who would do that. There really is. It's kind of sad, but it's true. It's kind of like the same thing when you go to, see a doctor or whatever, and they bill you before insurance does. You've already paid your copay, but then they bill you again because a lot of people will just write that check and not think about, this must be what I'm left over to pay for the insurance. Well, probably not, and then your insurance pushes everything through and you just paid more money than you had to pay. And then you try to get that money back. Well, they might get it to you eventually, but it could be so much a hang up for you or such a hassle that you could wait a year to get $20 back.
Well, I called like when I had my surgery a few years back. I called the hospital and said they told me that the insurance would cover this, and this, and so I proceeded under the idea that that's the way it would be, and so I complained, and they actually went a little bit out of their way to compromise. They cut the actual bill by 50%.
Of course, you know why?
Because otherwise they'd probably get nothing.
That's right. People have this misconception about hospitals, or like why they won't go to the hospital. Oh, I won't go to the hospital. I don't want to be a debt. Well, I hate to tell you this, but hospitals will take what you give them, because the alternative is getting nothing, and they will write the rest off. They can legally write the rest of your bill off. The other thing is that whatever they charge you is not necessarily what an insurance company would pay them anyway. So they could say this costs $250, but an insurance will look at that and run it through their algorithms and say, we will give you $170. So it's not a big deal for them to compromise and get whatever money and cut prices or whatever to do for you, because otherwise they wouldn't get any money, or they would get less than they charged in the first place to an insurance company. So it's just the same thing. It's like a barter system. It's like bartering. They'd still rather get your money. If you had called them and said, I'll give you $5 a month for the next 30 years, they'd have taken it.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're actually that flexible.
They actually are.
Because I tried that at first, and they actually wanted more than I could give. And eventually when I convinced, I don't know who I talked to, but I eventually got to talk to somebody who came up with this other idea. So maybe they just didn't want to have the appearance that was a possibility, to make sure that I wasn't lying,
Yeah, the point is that they actually will work with you. That's the thing. And, everybody knows that prices for things are super inflated, but a lot of times the prices are inflated because they don't get any money for anything. But whatever. Kind of off the subject. But so anyway, today, what I wanted to do was tap into the doc's knowledge, which might not be a big tap. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about a couple things that were kind of interesting to me and maybe slightly perplexing. I don't know. What do you know, Doc, about the dark net or the dark web? Or are they the same thing? Are they different things? What do you think?
For a lack of a better term, yeah, you could call them the same thing. The dark web is probably the most common term for it. I know that I don't like messing around there, because you go to a website on there and you really don't know what you're going to get.
Oh, so if we said, hey, Doc, could you access the dark web, you actually would be able to?
Oh, sure.
Oh my God, really? That's just crazy. Yeah. So
so could you. All you got to do is download a browser that can maneuver it.
Okay. So why is it called the dark web exactly? What's the point? So we've got our World Wide Web, if you will, that we all use. So if I want to buy a pair of, Batman pajamas, I can pretty much easily do that. If I want to get a book from Barnes & Noble or Amazon or whatever, I can pretty easily do that. If I want to look up the dark web or the dark net on Wikipedia, I can easily do that. So these are all just simple little paths.
That's the thing with the regular internet. There's a certain way that things are done, and it's highly regulated and it's very predictable. So when you access a website, there's a record of it, and the domain name system is different, almost backwards, on the dark web from the way the regular web works. And because of that, it makes it very difficult, in some cases impossible, to track people down one direction or another. So you could move a website from one server to another seamlessly, on the dark web. So if somebody's putting up some illegal content, pirated music, whatever, the odds of tracking them down before they move are very, very low. So, and it goes the same way for the people browsing it. If you want to get information on somebody browsing the website, good luck with that. But because of that, because it's so difficult to pin people down and identify them that way, what you wind up getting is people putting up some very illegal things. And, you know, you go to a website and an ad pops up or whatever, you know, you could get a face full of things that you didn't bargain for.
So, but is that different from... So you're talking about if I was on the dark web, but if I'm on the regular web, are they fishing for us? Are dark web sites fishing for us on the regular web?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But you know, there are dark web sites that are in some cases actually useful if you're prepared for the types of risks that you'd be taking. So it's not someplace that I like to play around with. I think it's more trouble than it's worth.
So if we're talking about the regular web, when you say that the regular web is pretty well regulated, let me say this too. Let me throw out this little caveat here to our listeners. As always, I don't know, maybe we should always announce this before a podcast, but I guess if you're a first-time listener, you should know that Doc and I don't know shit about shit. Well, I mean, that's kind of a generalization. Obviously, we do know some things. But we are not experts in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not an expert on it. Well, I profess personally that I am not an expert on anything. I know very little about a wide range of things, but I would not say that I'm worldly or well-versed or knowledgeable or anything like that. And so I do this podcast specifically because I have questions that I like to discuss with Doc, and then we just give our stupid opinions on it. So I'm not saying that, you know...
I don't consider myself an expert in terms of the dark web. I consider myself an expert in terms of most things IT related.
Yeah, so that's why it's kind of fun for me to ask you these questions because, yes, I don't think Doc is some person that's running around on the dark web all the time. But from a information technology standpoint, obviously there's things that I could actually ask Doc that he is pretty well versed in. But so I just wanted to throw that out there and say, hey, you know, this is still fun for us. It's not to be taken super seriously. But when you say that the web itself, like the web that I'm used to using, is regulated, how well regulated would you say it is?
Well, compared to the dark web, very. In reality, not very well at all.
Okay, because when I think about it, I don't feel like it's so regulated that I am oppressed in any way. For example, it is so easy for me to look up porn, and obviously there are algorithms that can say, okay, this is the type of porn that he's interested in, and I'm not hurting anyone by the type of porn that I'm looking at, in other words, by today's standards. But if there was someone out there who was trying to access, you know, porn that is for underage, you know, that is underage, I would hope that there's some sort of algorithm that can track them and find them.
Correct.
But again, maybe the standard could change in 20 years where looking up porn in general could be considered aberrant behavior, and that's something that could be tracked. So I guess it's a matter of freedom and what is considered right or wrong at the time. For example, you notice that people don't focus so much on, I guess I would say maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people didn't talk about pornography quite as much as they do now. And if you talk about it now, people don't really look at you like you have a third head. But I
guess it depends on who you were talking to.
Well, I mean, just in general. You know, it's not like our politicians are not sitting there taking stands on pornography all the time like they did 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, because half the politicians nowadays are part of the pornography.
Well, just a generalized, that's a generalized statement, but it might be pretty accurate. But so what I'm saying is, I look up porn without any fear, is what I'm saying. So how well regulated is? Do I think that by looking at porn on the internet that somebody's going to kick in with some FBI agent or whatever, if there happens to be some other agency that is in charge of regulating the internet, that they're going to kick down my door?
They may not kick down your door for that, but I bet you if I went in and started fishing through the history and temporary files and things of that nature on your computer, you've got something on there illegal.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. The other thing that I guess is kind of interesting is, and you kind of hear the radio DJs talk about it. Like, I don't usually listen to the radio very much anymore. Sometimes I can catch a couple minutes of a morning show. But I remember from years ago, before I listened to podcasts all the time, that they would kind of laugh and complain and say, here I am trying to do research on this topic, and it's not always some pleasant topic. It's something goofy that they want to use for the show, but they'll get firewalled, at their work. But their job is to, maybe they're shocky jocks, like, kind of like Howard Stern was, and they'll get firewalled or something like that. So it's the same thing for me. If I'm going to look up something, I might look up something that's completely off the wall, batshit crazy, and yeah, you could find that on my computer, but does that mean I'm off the wall, batshit crazy?
Well, I think the way the laws are written, they want to be able to have the law enforcement people like it that way. The fact that while a reasonable person would look at your computer and say, well, you probably didn't know that was there, and judging by your history, you can see the pattern of behavior that would suggest that it wasn't your intent. You didn't go looking for that material, so it just, bad things happen. It's a risk you take when you go out on the internet. So, but if they were pissed at you for some other reason and they just wanted to investigate you, because that seems to be popular nowadays, to investigate the person and not the crime. So if they wanted to look through your computer just to find something wrong so they could charge you with something, they probably could. And that's the way the law enforcement likes it.
Right, and that's why I guess there's probably some opinion out there that there's this time frame now where we can use the internet and we're really not doing any harm, but how long is that going to last? And maybe, obviously there's lots of nefarious things on the dark web, but there's probably lots of things on the dark web that is not so nefarious that people go to just because they're trying to protect their privacy. Maybe that makes them a little paranoid, maybe it doesn't, but maybe they're also looking at it and saying, you know what, maybe this is our last landscape of free speech or free expression for people who are not buying body parts and not trying to hook up with children or whatever.
Well, a lot of the things on the dark web are also in other countries. So the regulation between countries is different. Let me see. The last time I was on the dark web, I was trying to buy equipment that would allow me to set up a cell phone antenna, basically.
For like, what, you wanted to set up a cell phone antenna for your own personal use, or you wanted to set up a cell phone antenna for what other reason? What reason would you have for setting that up? Well, that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, okay, what could be your possible motivation other than some sort of, advantage to you or some profitability for you to set up a cell phone antenna?
We were talking about in the class I was taking at the time. We were talking about how people might be able to take one of these devices and set up an antenna that could intercept your cell phone's calls and then relay them out to the real tower. So basically, when your cell phone goes looking for a connection, it's going to take the nearest, strongest one, usually, and it will connect to that. And then my antenna will communicate with the real tower. And so now I have a man in the middle attack, which basically can record and monitor everything you do.
And you would want to
And
do
you
that.
would never know the difference.
Okay,
Well,
and why would you want
be
to do that?
difficult. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, why would you want to do that?
So you can learn how to protect yourself again. Learn what to look for.
Learn what to look for because of why? Why? Okay, let me ask this question. Why did, other than being in the class, okay, so you talked about this in class. I'm assuming some sort of IT class. So you talked about this in class, and then you went home and you're like, oh, I wonder, if I could utilize something like this for my own personal purposes. Because why? You want to spy on people?
No, because if you know how it's done, then you can find signs that it happened. You know what to look for.
So you think that
It takes a hacker to catch a hacker.
Well, okay, but I understand that. So, but I guess my question is, if that thought entered your mind, then what is it that you're doing wrong that you're worried that someone's coming to look for you? Well, because that's obviously why you would do it.
No.
Hello, are you there? Are you there?
No. Like I used to work at a credit union, right? And there were attacks made against the credit union many times a day. And if you didn't know how to protect against those attacks, then fall victim to them. But because I have a certain set of skills that allowed me to predict how those
Are you
attacks
going
would be
Liam
made,
Neeson on me?
I was able
Don't
to
go Liam.
go
Don't go all
through
Liam Neeson
and
on me.
stop them.
Okay, so but you were talking about. So what were you talking about? Getting this for the company then, or for your own personal use?
No, it's a learning tool.
Okay. So I'm gonna take that as the actual answer, even though I know you're lying to me, but that's fine. I like how you threw in the Liam Neeson line.
I have a certain set of skills.
I have a very specific skill set. Do you? Is it because you trained Batman? Anyway. Okay. Well, anyway, so you ventured onto the dark web to just kind of look because you obviously knew if you looked on the regular web, you probably weren't going to find that you're not going to find that.
Yeah. Well, it was a topic during the class, and was trying to educate myself. It's not something that I do every day, and in most cases, there's not a whole lot of use for it, but it's not completely without value. I mean, there are real products you can buy on the dark web. A lot of people, they use it to distribute either pictures or information that they want to do anonymously. But again, it's only going to be picked up by people who frequent the dark web. And then, like reporters, I'm sure that they spend a fair amount of time looking around on the dark web to see what they can learn. There are news sites and things like that. I don't know. I didn't find it very useful for regular everyday life.
Well, I guess that because the web itself is so hard to regulate and so hard to make rules about in the first place, if you're talking about layers of the web itself, I feel like if there's agencies out there that are actually trying to monitor activity on the web, they probably should start with a regular web first. Because there's plenty of things out there that they could. I mean, whenever they're catching, like that show, what was it, To Catch a Predator, or how people are always getting arrested for, trying to meet children that they talk to online. They're doing their catfishing thing. Isn't that what it's called? Catfishing? Is that what it is?
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So that's all. That's like most likely not dark web stuff. That's just some idiot that's gonna get caught on the regular web.
Right.
Because obviously, most of the time, obviously those people aren't smart in the first fucking place. Newsflash for you idiots. You know, if you're some fucko that does that, don't listen to our fucking show. First of all, if you do listen to our fucking show, I hope you get fucking caught. But it's always a cop. There's always gonna be a cop at the other end, you genius. Anyway.
I thought a real good show, which has some very realistic depiction of how network security works, is called Mr. Robot. Are you familiar with that one?
I am not, but I am very rarely am I familiar with whatever reference, whatever show, movie, whatever you reference. It's very rare that I am familiar with the same one.
Yeah. Well, it's a really interesting series. I haven't finished watching it yet. They're about halfway through season 2. Just haven't had the time to finish season 3. I think there's a season 4 out there, but they had that Queen movie that was out earlier. The guy who played Freddie Mercury in that movie is the main character of the show.
Okay, so it is a show about internet security?
Yeah, it's about just what people can learn about other people. Yeah, I'd say internet security is a good subject.
Okay. So I guess for me, when I look at just doing stuff on the web, there's stuff that I would be afraid of doing, and there's stuff that I'm not afraid of doing. Like I said, I don't care. If I want to look at porno, I can look at porno. But something that I would never do is look up. Well, I guess I can't say that because I do look at things for the show. But there's certain things that I wouldn't want to try to look up. Like, for example, when I was in high school, a friend of mine had a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook. Okay, you could get that back then fairly easily. You might be able to get it at a garage sale.
But as soon as you access it, somebody's going to know that you did it, and you're going to go on. Your name's going to go on some list somewhere, and anytime there's trouble, they're going to be looking at your name as potential suspect.
Exactly, and that's why I say, like, back then when we didn't have the internet, or not utilized for us exactly like it is now. Obviously, the military had it in different colleges, whatever. But you could get that book. You could get it. You might be able to find it at a garage sale. You might be able to find it at a bookstore or whatever. And nobody tracks the purchase of that because we didn't even have debit cards then. You just went and bought something. And it was not uncommon to have that book. I think I actually knew more than one person that had that book. So, but now, for example, like you said, if I wanted that book, I would definitely not be trying to find it on the internet. I would have to, kind of like the old days, I'd have to look out and find it at a garage sale. And then I'd still be scared to buy it because maybe that's a setup. Who knows? But,
right.
I would just want it just because I never read it. I never borrowed it, never looked at it. I knew what was in it, but I guess, it's one of those things that's a resource.
I don't think there's anything illegal owning it, but like the various explosives and things like that are defined in the book, and if you attempted to make them, then you can get in a lot of trouble for possession of those types of material in their finished condition. Right.
But because of the type of landscape that we live in now, societally speaking, that if you had the book, and not saying that you're going to go do anything wrong, but just having possession of that book could be looked upon in a, in a bad light.
Well, we all know that with the justice system in the United States, the way it works today, being innocent is not enough. You have to appear innocent because you are apparently guilty till proven innocent.
Exactly,
today.
Because there's so much fear-mongering.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, I'm like, well, I'd kind of like to have that book, but there's no way I'm going to ever get it. That doesn't mean that obviously it's something that keeps me up at night. I'm just saying as a novelty, Something that was so easily accessible to us when we were 15 is not accessible now. And if it was accessible now, then yeah, you're like you said, I'd be afraid that I was going to be on some sort of watchdog list.
Now, if I wanted to go to a torrent site on the dark web, I bet you I could find a copy of it there. It would be very difficult for anyone to trace the fact I downloaded it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, well, that for me, that's when I'm thinking about the stuff about the dark web. I'm like, well, I can understand why there's that Ellison. Again, I don't think everybody who's on the dark web is there for nefarious reasons. They're there for the amount of privacy that we, as the general public, feel is in place for us on the regular web. That really, some of it is, some of it isn't. It's so vast that not everybody's going to be able to. Nothing's going to be as regulated as people would think, but too many people search on the web without any caution whatsoever. And the people that are using the dark web obviously know that, are these people that are super paranoid that are using it, or are they smarter than the rest of us? Because that's the layers of privacy by utilizing that we simply don't have on the regular web. I don't know. What's your opinion on that? Do you think the majority of the people are on there for legal purposes or, I guess, nefarious reasons, or what do you think?
It's hard to say. I'd say most of the time, yeah, people are looking for legal things that they just practice of anonymity. You know what I mean? They're paranoid about government watching everything they do, and by using the dark web, they feel like that they're getting the peace of mind that what they're doing is not being monitored. And they do. They do watch the dark web. They do look for things, but it's a lot harder. It takes a lot more time. So they're probably not gonna find or go looking for something that you did unless they thought you did something really bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things that would be kind of good was if you were, let's say that you wanted to be kind of swept up by a government agency because of your ability to utilize or manipulate, through or navigate through the dark web itself, and demonstrate that you do have, quote, a specific skill set. It seems like that area, not only would it be a good area to bait criminals, but it would also be a good way to shop for talent. Because obviously you want the best and brightest on your side, and you want the ones who know how to navigate those problems. It'd be like sending out your own personal resume and saying, oh, look, there's someone out there that really knows what the hell they're doing. Maybe we can get them to work for us. I mean, that's kind of a romantic view, but really, that's got to be part of recruiting. I mean, why do hackers do what they do if they're not making any money off of it? I mean, I understand that they get a thrill out of it, but I imagine there's a good percentage of them of an end game to be recruited.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if I were going to look for somebody to do that kind of work, I would want them to demonstrate an understanding of the techniques that a lot of the bad guys use. So, but not necessarily be so involved with it that they actually prefer like using the dark web over the regular web, because believe it or not, it's actually much slower. The regular web that most people use is optimized, but along with that faster optimized speed comes the baggage of a traceable path.
Right. So you're talking, and the reason why
So
the dark web is slower, you're saying basically is it's not like I'm requesting information from one site and there's a direct line of communication between us. There might be, it's kind of like laundering money. There might be 50 things in between, layers of um, IPs or whatever, or sites that it's bouncing to before you ever get to that location so that it can't be tracked.
well, both of them use the same connection. It's just the means by which they use that connection. You know what I mean? Is the dark web is very slow. It's not very efficient, but it's difficult, like I said, to track them down. But the regular web is very efficient because the paths are already lined out, from point A to point B, and that's how the router knows where to forward it to. Where if you were to release something on dark web, in theory, even the simplest tasks would take several more hops. I don't know if you're familiar with how file sharing or web torrents, how those work, but it's very simple or very similar to a torrent system where bits and pieces could exist on multiple sites of the same. You look at a web page and almost the very few elements exist on the same physical location. They could be located across the world, and it just bits and pieces get put together. And I might be overstretching my understanding of how the dark web works, but it's more complicated on purpose.
Well, yeah, because that's more
provides that privacy.
Well, just my generalized understanding of it is that there's far more. Well, that's how they don't. That's how people that don't catch you, or how they can't track where you've been. Kind of like now, I mean, you can easily track where I've been. Even if I cleared my history, you can still track where I've been. Clearing my history doesn't matter that much. I mean, like, okay, whatever. Somebody who actually knows what they're doing can tell where I've been. But on the dark web, obviously, they're pinging all over the place, and everything's encrypted and more layered. Kind of like, like when Guardians of the Galaxy, when they're trying to get to Quill's father's planet, right? And they do the hop where they're, like, pinging all over the place, to jump from place to place. That's kind of how I think of it. 50 steps to get to one step. That's my generalized understanding of. Obviously, everything's layered and encrypted for a reason because that's trying to protect the privacy of the person who's using it. Obviously, there's that. For example, I went on, Netflix and Amazon and tried to find just like a documentary on that sort of thing, and there's really nothing. There's really nothing out there yet on it, which is kind of, for me to have even the briefest understanding or knowledge that it exists. But there not to be any documentaries. I thought that was kind of bizarre because there's a documentary on everything.
It's a completely separate indexing system. I just opened up a website to see if it explains things a little bit better. Looking this over, I don't think I'm too far off, but there's a lot more to it than what I'm able to.
Well,
I know you need a special browser to use it. I think it was called Onion. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm sure they named that because of the similarities between Onion's got layers.
Yeah.
I'm like this onion. You mean you smell bad? You make you cry when you cut it. That sort of thing. So a special browser, and I don't know. I guess my question too is, why would anybody access it in the first place? I think of all the secrecy reasons that somebody would want to access it, but I'm trying to also look at the flip side of it and say, okay, well, why would a normal person access it? I guess is my question.
Well, there are products that you can't get anywhere else, at least not from the United States, for example. For various reasons like copyright reasons and like that. There are things that you can get there that you can't, or you can get cheaper there than here. I know. That my teacher back then, he ordered a couple of T-shirts off of that, off of a website that he found, and he thought that was cool. He ordered some equipment that you could plug into the computer and basically force your way in, but you need physical access to the computer. Basically take the thing over and start dissecting all the information on it.
Okay, so some piece of equipment like that, though, how would you justify having a piece of equipment like that?
Again, they call it ethical hacking. It's a learning tool. If you know how it's done, you know how to set up a router storm, so to speak, then you can start man-in-the-middle attacks, and by knowing how it's done, then you can take steps to prevent it or make it more difficult for people to do those sorts of things to the network that you're managing.
Right, I guess, but I'm imagining this teacher of yours, and let's say that he got that piece of equipment, but he wasn't a teacher. What's his justification for having that? Is this a person that thinks they're more important than they actually are? Are they? To me, it comes down to a paranoia. Are you this person that's so important that you really think that people are watching you? That people are hacking into your shit?
They absolutely are, every day. I guarantee your computer being online right now, somebody in China is collecting data that's going by. They may not be able to figure out what that data is, but they're collecting it. I guarantee it. This recording is being copied somewhere.
Thank God. I'm okay with that. Anyway, but you're talking about, when you're talking about data collection in general, that's why ads pop up for us, like on Facebook and Instagram and all those things that we're like, I never planned on looking at this, but here's something that pops up and something that I'm interested in. That's how they data collect, and they run it through their little algorithms to pop up stuff that you can use, so that they can make money off of you because you're going to buy this product or you're going to use this product or whatever.
Okay, here's an example. I had some personal information. I was dealing with a company, and they sent my personal information to me in an email. Right? Now, I don't have any proof of who intercepted that information. I guarantee you that personal information is sitting out on somebody's computer, and they offered because they screwed up, they offered 1 year of that LifeLock protection, and that information is going to be sitting on somebody's computer forever, for the rest of my life. So eventually, if they get around to seeing what they got, they could really put the hurt on me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That email is on somebody's server somewhere, along with my personal information.
But is that any more dangerous than, as an example, is that truly any more dangerous than the knowledge that I have in my head right now of, for example, when my dad was in the Army, his service number was an actual service number. When I was in the Army, our service number was our Social Security number. And every time you went to eat and the DFAC, you had to write it down next to your name. So there are hundreds, thousands, millions, billions probably of pages of service members' Social Security numbers next to their IDs from eating in a dining facility. We had to say our service number, quote, so many times that I still remember my battle buddy's social security number. And I bet you, I would bet you $1,000 he remembers mine.
Huh.
I could say it
Yeah,
right. I could say it right now, but I'm not going to.
I still remember mine because it's like every form that we had to fill out, there was a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But on our orders, my orders for airborne school, my orders for going to Germany, my orders for coming back from Germany, my orders for air assault school, all those orders that I kept has the list of all the students that were going to that school. And you know what's right next to those names? All of their social security numbers. So not as only so everybody that went to school with me has those.
Could I go out and find that on the web?
Could you find it on the web?
Yeah.
You could find my social security number on the web.
No, I'm asking, do you think I could, these paperwork that you had to fill out, all the information on it, think that's publicly available?
I would hope not, but that's my point. My point was, is it any easier? It's easy to get this information now, easy to get different information now, but it was also easy to get information then. It's a question of when you've said that you've got this information that's sitting on somebody's computer, like, okay, well, if there ended up being some identity theft or for some reason for them to screw you over, you were never able to find that person, but it would have been just as easy if somebody had kept a sheet of the people signing into the DFAC that day. You would never be able to track it down to anybody else either. My point is...
The difference is in the availability of, like, how many people have access to that information. And of those people, how many of them are likely to use it for nefarious purposes? So when it's on the internet, on some computer in China, which is probably where it's being recorded, their whole purpose of collecting the information is nefarious. And as soon as they realize what they've got, my name is going to be crap, financially speaking.
Well, on the plus side,
it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Well, I mean, on the plus side, I've got an entire sheet of Social Security numbers you can borrow. I've got several of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing, though, is when you're talking about, well, it's about access to information, what they want to do there with that information. That was my point, though, is that my information is out there with anybody I ever went to school with that kept their orders. Or anybody I was ever with on a long period of time that could memorize my service number. I memorized my battle buddy service number. We were together from basic training all the way through our first unit together. And we used to go to the DFAC together, and he would say mine, and I would say his. So that's my point.
It used to be that way at the college, too. When the student ID used to be your Social Security number. So they'd ask for the student ID, and I'd say no. You don't need to know that. And I guess other people started speaking up, and now they have an actual a unique numbering system that's just for the school.
Well, it's the same thing. It's all about access, like you said. You can't. You're always giving out this information, and you're trusting the people on the other end that's getting the information to utilize it properly. But we all know that there's criminals everywhere. I mean, why does when you go to, I'll use the hospital as an example. The hospital used to do that. When you would check into the emergency room, they'd ask for your Social Security number. Well, they're not required to have it. Insurance does not require them to utilize your Social Security number. They ask because it's an old way of doing things, but you can say, no, you can't have my Social Security number. You can get all my information through my insurance that I'm giving you, my insurance card. You don't need my Social Security number. You have my insurance number and you have my driver's license. But my Social Security number should never come into play. But there's so much information, and it's out there available on all of us. It's hard to wrap your head around it, how easy it is for somebody to take over your life, I guess. And those companies like LifeLock and stuff, they get hacked too. Shit. They're always fucking up. What was the big one that fucked up?
Oh, hospitals get hacked all the time, man.
Yeah, what was the?
In fact, that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons that I decided to get into nursing, because if I could get into their IT program, with the whole informatics gig that they've got going on there, I think I could really help out, do a lot of good.
Yeah, except you're not going to be doing what you think you're going to be doing. Hospital informatics doesn't have anything to do with internet security. That's what their IT department does, quote unquote. Hospital nursing informatics is all related to the charting system and the EMRs we use.
Well, imagine you got to be familiar with all the HEPA rules and things like that.
Yeah, but everybody's required
If
to be
the software that I'd be writing, maintaining, whatever, it's going to have certain precautions built into it in order to prevent.
No, you wouldn't be doing that stuff. That's not what nursing informatics does. Nursing informatics does,
No?
we want to do, okay, you know how you have this click button here that says pupils equal round reactive light and accommodation, equal ocular movement intact. We want to also add that there's no strabismus. And can you work with the manufacturer to add that in? That's what informatics does. You might, if they decide someday they want a different electronic medical record, maybe they'll elicit your opinion on to look at different electronic medical records. But you're not doing that. If you want to actually learn how to do true informatics that's helping in the way you're talking about, you'd have to work for a private company that actually makes electronic medical records. You're making it out to be more romantic than it actually is. It's not like that. They pick regular people to work in informatics because that field is new. They just came out with a degree in it. I mean, they didn't even have a degree in it before. It's a whole new area that's only been spread over the past 5 years or so locally.
Then why do they make it a requirement in order to get an informatics degree that you have to have a nursing license?
Because they had all these people that were doing nursing informatics who were just nurses. So they want them to also have some sort of a background in computer sciences. I had a friend who was one of the head people in nursing informatics. She just doesn't know shit about computers other than more than I do. It's more administrative type work. You're not programming anything. You're not doing stuff like that. That's all done by independent contractors. You're looking at services that are already available and utilized by the medical personnel and seeing how things can be more well adapted for what you're doing. But you're not going to rewrite anything. The company that already built your software is going to rewrite it. Now, if you wanted to do something...
I suppose it would come in handy, though, being familiar with that sort of thing, to be able to identify when a company is capable of doing the job that they say they're doing.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you wanted to really do what you're talking about, then you would actually want to go work for a medical software company. Then you would actually get to do the cool shit. But if you think nursing informatics is what you think it is, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, but it would be, and that's what I'm saying. That's why that degree just came out that degree hasn't been out that long. Most of the people that you run into in nursing informatics within the past few years do not have computer science degrees. They're just nurses who wanted to do something else. I could have done nursing informatics when I was a nurse.
Yeah, well, I was going for a computer science degree, but I think the way I'm going now is better for everybody.
I still think you would do a lot of good in nursing informatics, because the reason why I told you, I would do that if I were you, is because there's so many opportunities out there to work for the medical software companies and to be like local representatives and to do things like help them implement that software. For example, like when they had, like some of the big ones are like Cerner and Epic and things like that. Well, you have, like I was on a Cerner committee. Well, it didn't mean I was like programming anything or anything. It just meant that I went from clinic to clinic and helped the providers implement Cerner after I got trained by the Cerner people. But if there was anything that needed to be changed with Cerner, there was an actual committee in the hospital that worked on that, but they weren't computer geniuses. They were just compiling everybody's complaints and saying, okay, now we'll present this to the Cerner folks and see if they can fix something. So you present it to them, and they tell you how much it's going to cost to fix it. But they're the ones who do the work. They're the ones who are making the money off of it. Like, we had an icon that we wanted to put on the program when I was there, and they said, yeah, it's like 10 grand to implement a new icon. So that's where the real informatics money is if you go either or develop your own medical software. I tried to get my older brother to do that. I'm like, let's write our own. You're a genius, and I know how this is what I want, and this is what people would want. That's where the money is. Shit, you implement a medical software package? That's a big deal.
Especially if it works.
Well, yeah, because most of them don't. But if you could implement a medical software package that can be tied in locally to get lab results from your local labs, can get results from hospitals tied in automatically when somebody gets admitted or goes to the emergency room, you have access to that, ties into their systems, and you have one that can implement the information from their old system into your new system. Oh my God, yeah. And you make it where it doesn't have to be much typing. And
yeah, that's really hard, though.
Well, I mean, they're out there.
You're talking database migration now,
Yeah,
and that's like one of the most painful areas of the IT world there is.
Yeah, and most of the time that when they transition, unfortunately, when they transition a lot of those to those EMRs, you end up having to keep your old password for the old one. So you have to go, if you want to look at old stuff, you go back into another site to pull that up, and that one only lasts for so long until they actually end up like downloading it all into something that's just like all basically Adobe or some shit like that. Every time that's why it's such a pain in the ass to implement a new medical software. But there's definitely room out there to make them for especially small entities or something that's really focused. Like if you created a medical software for medical spa companies that's just strictly for med spa procedures, I mean, that's a small field, and you've got a good chance of actually getting a pretty good following. But that's more along the lines of what you would be talking about. If you're working for a hospital, you're not doing those crazy things. That would be more along your interest until that field actually expands. Because right now, the people that I know that work in it, they're not computer people. None of them that I knew had an IT degree. And most of them couldn't manage.
Well, I just know that there's a lot of competition in the IT field, and when it comes to job hunting, either you have the degree, or they don't, or either you have the degree and the employers are going to look for you, or you don't and they don't. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
For the exact same amount of money that it cost me to get a nursing license, I can get a nursing degree that will pay probably 25-30% more than an IT degree, which has much more competition. You know what I mean? So being a nurse, there's more demand for it, and it pays better. It makes more sense from a career point of view.
Right, but I mean, what I'm saying is, within informatics, being a nurse, within nursing informatics, you would be more qualified than 99% of the people you're going to work with. So even if that becomes a requirement where they say, okay, yeah, you got to have a nursing degree. The reason why you have to have a nursing degree to be in nursing informatics is because they're nurses. It doesn't mean that you're going to go work in nursing informatics with a bunch of people that know anything about information technology. That's the flip side of it.
Right.
So you could sweep in there, and most likely you're going to know more than all of them. But the requirement is to be a nurse. That's just because that's a field that that's blossoming. But most of them have not got any into now. Most of them do not have any IT training.
Well, the thought has run through my mind that after going through everything what I'm going through now and what I'm about to go through, if all goes according to plan in the fall, starting up on the nursing program, after going through all of that, will I even want to go and get back into the IT stuff, or do you think I'm going to wind up just sticking with that and going with the flow? Because that's a decent way to go too.
Well, you won't know till you do it, obviously, and you don't even know.
Nice to have options.
Yeah, and you're not going to know. There's so many different areas in nursing that you can work that you're not going to know which one you want to do. There's plenty of people that I've known over the years that work in nursing that spent very little time as clinical nurses. They went and became case managers, or they went and did this, or they did management. You don't have to work as a bedside nurse to be a nurse. And that's kind of what the information technology folks are doing. The nursing informatics people, they don't do bedside nursing anymore. That's what they do. But they're still nurses. They still have to keep up their clinical education or their units that they have to do every year. But that doesn't mean that they have to work as bedside nurses. It's just another area that they're branching into in this specific technology-based age, I guess. But like I said, most of them are not going to have IT degrees. So, but yeah, it's just you won't know till you actually start doing stuff. I lucked out and I worked in the emergency room as soon as I started, and that's where I stayed. That's what I liked doing as a nurse. I would not have wanted to do anything different. I tried doing a couple different things, but I hated it and just went back to working in the ER. So, yeah, you won't know till you do it.
I wonder, again, I don't know until I get there, but the ER seems like it would probably be the most interesting place to work.
I predict you will work in the ICU.
Think so?
Yep. That's my prediction. My prediction is you will do about 2 years on a medical surgical floor, and then you will transition to the intensive care unit.
Huh.
So we'll see what happens if I'm right. But that's my prediction.
Well, either way, as long as I get to be useful.
As long as you get to pass. That's the big thing. As long as you get your prereqs done, you actually get into the nursing program, and you're good to go. All right. Well, cool.
Yeah,
well,
I think I'll get there.
Well, that was very little bit. I just wanted to talk about that and just get your opinion on it. I actually had an idea for a couple other ones that I wanted to kind of branch off on this and just utilize and pick your brain a little bit. I don't want to show my hand and say what I want the next one to be about, but I did want to talk to you about it and see what you think. And we'll talk about that after I end the recording. But I'd say it's pretty cool. It was nice to get your opinion on that. We didn't really talk about selling body parts or anything. I'm sure they got that on the dark web, but I'm not really interested in buying any. I know personally I will not be venturing into the dark web. I don't know how. I would do it anyway, but I'm pretty sure I could figure it out. But I will not be doing it. I'll be sticking
Most people don't need it.
Yeah, I will be sticking with the regular web where I will be frequenting my normal sites that I usually look at and my healthy, wholesome porn sites that I also frequent. So, anyway, I guess that's it. Thanks for listening. I don't even remember what episode this is. It's got to be like 22. I'll have to figure that out when I number the episode, obviously, and so it's not going to affect anybody else at all, except for me when I look to upload it. But as usual, though, please get other people to listen. We dropped in numbers. When I did my the extra content of Beaveman and the Daughter, she actually got more listens than you and I got on our last episode on SoundCloud. So, yeah. Gotta listen. Gotta share. You gotta get your friends to listen. Gotta share. And comment. Even if you make shitty comments, I guess. I'll ignore shitty comments. But at least that means you listened, I guess. As usual, I would like to say thanks for listening to this episode of Beaveman and the Doc. I am the Beaveman saying adios, mooch fuckos.
Yeah, listen, bitches.
All right.